knowing who you're trying to reach does not change the gospel, but it does shape how you bring the gospel to bear on people. The purpose in building your plant with this shape is not to exclude some, and I keep saying not to exclude people, but to acknowledge that you have finite resources and you need to use them wisely under God. Welcome to the fourth episode in our Church Planting Australia podcast series. This episode we're looking at the question of how is it the gospel intersects with the people I'm trying to reach? That is the question of contextualisation. I'm Derek Hanna.
And I'm Madeline Galea. So to reach people with the gospel, we need two things. Firstly, we need the gospel. We're going to assume for this episode that is something that you know, that you believe, but it's always worth reminding yourself of again. And the second is, who are we trying to reach? So in the last episode, we talked about if I'm going to plant, I need to know the location and I need to know the people that live in that area. And so now we're pressing into contextualization. So I know the people, but how does the gospel intersect with that particular context?
Yeah, and the considerations here are around really the outflowing of this are things that we talk about around the poetry and the plumbing for your church. So that is how you speak about the poetry, how you speak about how you vision cast, what you're doing, and the plumbing, the structures, the systems that support that dream in that. And the poetry and plumbing, they all flow from these questions around contextualisation. The gospel is unchanging, and so that's not going to change, but the way in which it connects with and speaks to and dissects and intersects with the culture and the people that we're in, that will vary.
Yeah. Tim Keller puts it this way: giving people the Bible's answers, which they may not all want to hear, to questions about life that people in their particular time and place are asking, in language and forms they can comprehend, and through appeals and arguments with force they can feel, even if they reject them.
It's a great quote. It's an excellent quote from Center Church, which is a brilliant book. And he's particularly pushing into preaching there, although as you read Center Church, you see it flows into every area. As he's pushing into there, contextualisation is about holding firm to God's teaching and God's word while clearing all non-gospel roadblocks so that people can come to know Jesus. And so it does shape into and it does bleed into our language and our gatherings and our teaching and our systems. Everything we do will be run through the lens of the gospel and applied to the context that we're in and the people we're trying to reach. And one of the key exercises that we get people to do as they're thinking through their church plant is building a persona of the typical person that this church plant might reach in this area. And as you're considering your plan moving forward, you are thinking into areas such as geography and lifestyle and idols in that area and gospel receptivity, their worldview and their neighbourhood concerns. And as you're answering those questions, you're going to come to realise that there is a particular body of thinking and way of approaching the world in the area you're planting. It may even be that you come to realise there's a particular subculture that we are best suited to reach with in this broader community, that we're better positioned to share the gospel with. And so while the prayer and while the way in which we function as a community will be that anyone who walks in the door, we will love and care for and share the gospel with anyone who comes to us. We do recognise that we have limited resources. And so in order to shape our ministry and to present the gospel in a way that connects, we need to be deliberate about how we do what we do with the resources we have. So building a persona and a picture of who it is that is our audience, our target persona, that is a really helpful thing to drill into the gospel. And we'll, if you look around some of the show notes, you'll find some links. We'll give you some examples of what that might look like, but it is an important thing to do. Our hope is that you're finding the Church Planting Australia podcast helpful and challenging and spurring you to think about how you could reach Australia through church planting. You can download all these resources and more in video form, on podcast apps, or on an ebook by going to genevapush.com/plantingaustralia.
Now we're going to hear from a few planters as they begin to identify and articulate the people that they're trying to reach.
So 5 years in, we realised we were gathering like people like us, so transients, because we had been transient to Mackay. We were attracting transients, and so we did a big rethink. So at the beginning of our time in Mackay, we did Mackay Mike and Mackay Mel and profiles around them, but because we didn't really know Mackay people very well, we needed to redo that whole process, because 5 years in, we knew people in Mackay, so we knew what Mackay Mike and Mackay Mel looked like. We're able to do some profiles around them and more strategically meet them. So Mackay Mike and Mel are avid Facebook users. Their business, they don't even have a website for their business, and they drive around town looking at billboards everywhere. So we decided to put our website just ticking along in the background, focus more on Facebook, and we engaged a billboard around town.
We have a focus on reaching 25 to 35-year-olds. That's the largest demographic in our area and the fastest growing.
We're trying to reach migrant communities, particularly Asians.
And what we wanted to do was reach both first and second generation migrants, because families is really the key to see the gospel make inroads into migrant communities.
So you can hear from those planters that we just heard from, they are beginning to push into the people that they're focusing on reaching, not to the exclusion of other people, but to use the resources and to understand the context they're in more sharply. Knowing who you're trying to reach does not change the gospel, but it does shape how you bring the gospel to bear on people. The purpose in building your plant with this shape is not to exclude some, and I keep saying it, not to exclude people, but to acknowledge that you have finite resources and you need to use them wisely under God. And so identifying who you're trying to reach will help you shape well with those resources what you do, and hopefully, prayerfully, under God, reach those people more effectively.
So as you consider this for your plant, keep asking the question, am I trying to plant the church of my dreams, or am I trying to plant a church that this community needs in order to know and to love Jesus? If you want to get assessed or talk to us more about church planting, go to genevapush.com/get-assessed and contact us. We would love to talk to you, answer any questions, and even walk you through the assessment process. This series is available in 3 formats: video, audio, and there's an ebook available as well. Go to genevapush.com/planting Australia.
Welcome to the 4th podcast in the Church Planting Australia podcast series. This, what? What? What was this?
4th episode of the...
4th episode, all right.
Sorry.